Chapter 2 New Blood. I silently stared at the demon as I felt a cold lump form in my throat from his voice. The only thing I had to be relieved about was being able to understand this world's language. Aside from that, what does he have? And we? Does that mean there are more of these demon-looking creatures? How strong are they anyways?
Interesting. This one seems to hold a unique blood signature,
the demon stated as he continued inspecting the results from the blood test. Before I even had a chance to think about his comment, the demon glanced at me, making me recoil in fear. The demon began walking towards my crib in a steady gait. As he made his appearance over my crib, his gaze bore into me, as if he was probing me.
Don't worry, little one. You'll make a great soldier for the High Sovereign. Although only after you've been trained and taught obedience, of course,
the demon stated, seemingly sensing my fear. The word obedience stood out to me, as it had an ominous tone. Although his needless statement has given me new information about this world, including a potential leader figure.
Now then, until your attendants arrive, I will continue testing for Vitra blood,
the demon declared, as if he was thinking out loud. Vitra blood? Could that be what he meant when he had something? Does this mean I have this so-called blood? As I continued on what to make of this new information, I heard footsteps echoing from the left side of the room. Just then, a group of people wearing black robes lined with silver practically appeared out of thin air. "Great Vitra, what do you require of us?" the man in the front asked.
We have a new blood. Take him and make sure he is brought to an available high blood for his training,
the Vitra declared. Seemingly on cue, the group took me and placed me into what could be described as a metal seat, except for the fact that it had glass overhead, which I had guessed was to keep me safe. Now that my spine was up, I could see the room I had awoken in with more clarity. All of the walls and floors are smooth and have a dark blue color to them, and admittedly the room would look nicer if there had been more lights other than the machinery and its blue hue. Just as I finished observing the room, the group began rushing out of the building, but before we had exited through the doors, I could have sworn I heard the Vitra burst into laughter, but that may have been my imagination. As soon as we left the building, I was immediately blinded, most likely due to my eyes not having had enough time to adjust to so much light. Sensing my distress, one of my attendants put her hands over the glass, allowing me to see my surroundings. As my eyes began to focus, I saw a large field of grass with a wall that stood no more than 30 meters high, with many soldiers stationed on and around it. As I continued gawking at the scenery, I noticed that a guard was marching towards us. "Greetings! I have received word that a child with the High Sovereign's blood has been identified. Please follow me to the carriage prepared for your departure," the soldier declared. "Hold on! Aren't you supposed to tell us which High Blood we are supposed to deliver this child to?" an attendant asked. "Unfortunately, I haven't gotten word of which High Blood the child will be going to. However, you will be informed once you make it to the Central Dominion," the soldier answered quickly. After the attendants finished gossiping about their concern, the soldier then guided us to a dark red carriage with two adjoining elegant golden lines going into a curve away from each other. One of the attendants looked warily at the carriage. "Have you made sure that the carriage is safe enough for us to get to the portal?" the attendant asked. "Not to worry. I've tasked my best men to guard it. With them, you'll be sure to get to the Central Dominion safely," the guard answered. Reluctantly making up his mind, the attendant started boarding the carriage, and soon after, the rest boarded it as well. The seats inside consisted of red cushions with large storage boxes on each end of them. As soon as the attendants were seated, the carriage began moving. "You don't have to be so on edge, you know," a female attendant said. "How could I not be, when we're carrying a child of Vitra descent? You understand that if anything were to happen to him, our heads will be on display, right?" the man responded. The child is safe inside his vessel, and besides, who could have the nerve to harm one of the Vitra's lineage? The female attendant stated. As the two attendants continued to bicker in unison, I looked around the carriage to find anything interesting to pass the time, until my eyes landed on a book being held by one of the attendants. While I'm thankfully able to understand this world's spoken language, I'm not quite sure about its written one. I tried to move my head to get a look at the book's title, and noticed that the letters were similar to the ones in my old world, albeit missing a couple of lines. History of Alacrya. Sounds interesting. I should try getting that book. Perhaps it could give me some more information about the high sovereigns everyone's been mentioning. Given previous interactions, these people seem like they will stop at nothing to keep me safe, so I'm sure they will give me any attention I need, right? I tried moving my small arms to tap the glass within the directions of my attendants to no avail, as it was too far for my reach. Damn it! I can't reach it! What do I do now? I stopped mid-thought, as an idea had popped into my head. One I didn't like. Though, there's no shame in it, right? Of course not. A warrior must use every tool at their disposal. Making up my mind, I began to do my best impression of a baby's cry, which consisted of a few sniffles and flailings of my arms around. The attendants quickly turned to my seat to see what's wrong. I knew it would work, but not well enough to have them all huddled around me in seconds. What's wrong?" an attendant exclaimed. Seeing this as a perfect opportunity, I quickly pointed to the book the attendant was holding. The attendants glanced at me with a look of confusion and surprise. Well, it's only expected they look at me like that, considering children typically tend to avoid books. "I think he wants that book you're holding," an attendant said. "Why would he want something he can't even read?" the attendant questioned. "Maybe he wants to learn about the High Sovereigns early on. And besides, it has drawings," another attendant answered. "Who cares? Just give me the book," I thought as I began trying to flail my arms around to catch their attention again. I don't think we should keep him waiting," the attendant exclaimed as she quickly took the book and opened the glass overhead and put it on my lap. I quickly turned the pages to begin reading. Before the High Sovereign had come down to Alacrya, he was a simple scholar who wanted to learn the mysteries of the world. He had served many of his homeland's leaders over his life to his utmost loyalty until one of the new leaders decided to destroy Alacrya, which was the source of his research, as it was home to the ancient mages. The High Sovereign begged him not to, and instead to unify both lands. However, the leader didn't listen, which caused fury to grow in the High Sovereign. He took it upon himself to go down to Alacrya and warn the mages. Once he arrived in Alacrya and warned them, they didn't believe him. Instead, they thought he was the attacker, which led them to attack him. If his subordinates weren't there, then there might have been nothing left of him. Once he and his subordinates fought back, the mages ran away to hide in the relic tombs, and left monsters later known as mana beasts to plunder the land. Once a leader back at the High Sovereign's homeland had learned of the High Sovereign's actions, he banished him. With nothing but a plot of land and his subordinates, they had vowed to build a nation. The inhabitants that were enslaved by the ancient mages were freed and had been given power of mana by the High Sovereigns to fight against the mana beasts. He then continued to expand his nation and strength with the help of his subordinates, the Scythes. Before I could finish reading, a loud bang interrupted me and caused everybody inside the carriage to stumble out of balance and the book to fall out of my lap. As soon as everyone regained their balance, a massive hole was seen blown into the carriage. "By the Vitra!" an attendant managed to stammer out. As the attendants quickly regained their composure, they closed the glass overhead to keep me safe. Half of the attendants left the carriage to take care of the disturbance, while the other half were left with me. "Hurry! Cast a layer of protective mana on the child," an attendant barked out. Soon after, I felt warmth around my body, as well as strength. How warm? It seems like there's something new I must research. Thanks to the hole in the carriage, I was mildly able to overhear what was going on outside. "Protect! This Manapy!" I wasn't able to hear much outside, due to the glass overhead seemingly being somewhat soundproof, although I was able to hear howls and cries. Could they be mana beasts? I wondered, as I looked upon the book that had fallen to the floor of the carriage. The page it had landed on had a picture of a wolf with thick fur and an iron jaw. They look really strong. Will we be okay? As soon as I was brought back from my thoughts, I heard cheering outside. "Fight this, Brit!" I looked around in confusion to find my attendants holding a look of shock and relief. The attendants quickly opened the glass overhead and took me outside, which led to my ears being bombarded with cheers. "Scythe Saris Vitra!" a soldier cried out. I looked around the forest-like area to find a corpse of a large dead wolf, with the same red hide and iron jaw I saw in the book. As soon as I was in everybody's line of sight, soldiers and attendants alike quieted down, as the scythe began slowly walking towards me, avoiding the corpse of the wolf. "We kept him safe for you, Scythe Saris Vitra," the attendant holding me managed to say in a small volume. As the scythe began getting closer and closer, I was able to get a better look at her. The proclaimed scythe had the appearance of a young adult with a thin frame, dark eyes, and long, luminescent pearl-colored hair that ran down her backside, which was also being tugged into her sweeping long black onyx horns. As soon as the scythe was no more than a few inches away from me, she spoke in a cool, relaxing voice. "I know you did, and now there's nothing to be afraid of, as I will personally be escorting this child to its blood." This statement caused many murmurs to erupt from the crowd. A scythe? Personally taking a child to its blood? Nonsense! That's never happened. "I don't believe there will be any objections to my actions," the scythe said coolly. The crowd quickly silenced themselves as she began taking me from the arms of the attendant. "Scythe Saris Vitra, how do you plan to make it to the Central Dominion? We still have a lot of land to trek," the attendant questioned. The scythe turned her head to look at him from the corner of her eyes. "How do you think I got here? And besides, I came here with a tempest warp," the scythe answered. "What's a tempest warp?" Before I had a chance to finish my thought, the scythe opened a corridor of light, as I instantly began feeling nauseous upon entering it. Soon after the light dissipated, I threw up whatever was in my empty stomach. Ugh. Whatever that was, I never want to go through it again. "Ah, sorry about that, little one. I thought you could handle it," the scythe apologized. Waving off her apology, I looked up to find a palace practically made of light, with 4 large pillars at its entrance, and more pillars continuing at its sides. "Welcome to your new home, Grey Verdict." Author's note: GuyInAlley. Sears called him Grey because I wanted that to still be his name in the New World.